Now your inheritance is all mine. I'm glad it happened sooner than I thought. Well, take it easy in heaven. Sister-in-law Linda boldly said this in front of my critically ill mother-in-law, Susan. Is she even human? As Linda leaves the room with a mocking smile, Susan, who had been bedridden, suddenly sits up, smiling. What? Susan? How? Yep, just as I thought. Linda was after my inheritance. Now I've got a lot to do. My name is Karen, a 34-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Robert for 4 years. We were colleagues at the same workplace. As we worked through various tasks together, we grew closer and started dating. After a year and a half, he proposed. I want you to walk through life with me forever. Will you marry me? Yes, I would love to. But after we decided to get married, Robert told me something I never expected. I want you to quit your job once we married. Do you mean you want me to be a housewife? Yeah, I'd like you to focus on household chores. Okay. Honestly, I wanted to continue working a little longer, but I also wanted to make our married life a priority. So I decided to quit my job and become a housewife. But then Robert shocked me even more. I want us to live with my parents after we get married. What? You mean move in with them? Yes, he wanted us to live with his parents. Wait a minute, you mean spend our newlywed life with your parents? I couldn't believe what Robert was saying. They're getting up in years. I want to support them. His idea was filial, but these were his parents, not mine. And we hadn't even met them yet. There's no way I could decide on living with them at this point. Can I think about it? What? We're getting married, right? Then you should be okay with this. But Robert was more forceful than I thought. But if I gave in now, I'd always be under his thumb. I can't agree to move in without meeting your parents first. Let me at least meet them and see if it will work. Finally, Robert reluctantly agreed. So we went to announce our engagement to both sets of parents. I was super nervous to meet his parents. Parents who force children to live together even before marriage. They could be difficult people, even potentially harassing us. With these worries, I arrived at their house with Robert. But his parents welcomed us warmly. Thank you for coming. We never thought Robert would marry someone so beautiful. They were all smiles and so kind that I was taken aback. Then I decided to ask the question. Robert mentioned that he wants us to live with you, right, after getting married? Is that true? Huh? Live together? Even when I brought up the idea of living together, my in-laws looked puzzled. What are you talking about? I was taken aback and looked at Robert. He chuckled. I just spontaneously suggested to Karen that we should all live together. What does he mean, spontaneously? But you know, Mom and Dad are getting older. I think we should consider living together. We appreciate the concern, but you two are newlyweds. Shouldn't you enjoy that phase alone? Exactly. We're still spry. The first years of marriage should be spent with just the two of you. Rather than agreeing with Robert, my in-laws opposed the idea. Robert looked flustered, probably not expecting opposition from his own parents. Well, I was just concerned. If you guys don't want to, I won't push it. So we didn't end up living together right away after getting married. Though I never quite understood why my husband was so insistent on living with his parents. It was comforting to know that they are genuinely nice people. I even thought living with them wouldn't be a bad idea. That time came 2 years after our marriage, when Joseph passed away due to illness. Now that Susan would be living alone, Robert suggested we moved in. I worry about leaving Mom alone. But I'm still fine and I don't want to be a burden. This time, I sided with my husband. We don't consider it a burden. I'm worried about you too, Susan. Please, don't hesitate to lean on us. Is that so? Thank you, both of you. Susan seemed pleased and a little emotional. Losing her beloved Joseph must have been devastating. She agreed to move in, and we canceled our rental and moved into the family home. Life there was peaceful. During the day, it was just Susan and me, and she was incredibly kind, teaching me various things. Susan and I became close, even going to cafes together. Karen, you're such a kind-hearted and honest person. Wasn't Robert like that as a kid? Not just Robert, but Linda too. Linda is my sister-in-law, who is already married and rarely visits the family home. The first time I met Linda was at our wedding, and the next time was at Joseph's funeral. Even when Robert and I would visit for Christmas or family gatherings, Linda's family never showed up. When it comes to us, Linda's always been rebellious. It's a bit sad, but I can't force her to visit. Susan looked sad when talking about Linda. It seemed like my in-laws had always struggled with parenting. Given Robert's spontaneous behavior, he probably gave them a hard time too. That's why I'm so glad that someone as wonderful as you became Robert's wife. Oh, Susan. I adored Susan. I thought of her like my real mom and couldn't understand why Linda would resent such a wonderful woman. Sometimes, even in the closest of families, boundaries are crossed and tempers flare. I can't really intervene, it's not my place to do so. I focus on keeping a good relationship with Susan. Then, we hit a bump in the road. Susan fell while riding her bike and broke her arm. We had been sharing housework duties, but now I had to take on all the chores until she recovered. That would have been fine, but some tasks required two hands. I couldn't handle them alone. Susan, with her arm in a cast, was struggling too. So I asked my husband if he could help Susan a little. He responded with an obviously annoyed face. I'm tired from work, But Susan has a broken arm and is in a cast. It's tough for her, right? What a hustle. I was disgusted by my husband's attitude. Why couldn't he help his own mother? Turns out, his eagerness for us to live with his mom was just a way to show off how filial he was at his workplace. I've seen him bragging to his old colleagues about how he takes good care of his parents and how much he loves his wife. The reality? He leaves all the housework and communication with Susan to me. While he enjoys a king-like status, sure, he's the breadwinner. But that's no excuse for not being more helpful around the house. I was growing increasingly frustrated with him. 3 months passed, and Susan's arm fully healed. Susan, it's great to see you better. Karen, I'm sorry for all the trouble. Don't worry about it. We're family. You're such a kind person, Karen. Unlike Robert. Feel free to dump him anytime. I'm not gonna dump him. I just want you to be happy, Karen. Those were Susan's kind words to me. Just as I was relieved about Susan's recovery, Linda, my sister-in-law, suddenly showed up. Linda, what brings you here so unexpectedly? It's rare for you to visit.
I missed you, Mom, and wanted to see you.
Huh?
I heard you broke your arm, so I was worried. But it looks like you're fine now,
Linda said shyly. Susan seemed shocked to hear Linda's unexpected kind words.
Hey, react, will you? Makes me look stupid for saying something nice.
Sorry, I was just surprised and touched at the same time. Susan was delighted. Do you like pound cake, Linda? Want to join us?
Sure, why not?
Seeing Susan so happy made my day, and I thought, let's enjoy this moment. At first, Linda seemed a bit tense, but she gradually relaxed and was having a good chat with Susan.
I'm sorry we haven't been able to show you our grandkids. Next time, I'll bring my husband and kids for a visit.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. After that, Linda started visiting Susan regularly on her days off, bringing her husband Thomas and their kids. The first time she spoke with Thomas, he seemed like a great guy, and their nephews were lovely as well. Susan looked thrilled to be spending time with her grandchildren. It had taken some time, but Linda and Susan were finally getting along, and that was a good thing. However, for some reason, Linda's husband didn't seem to like the idea of Linda and Susan getting along. You know, Linda's been coming over a lot lately.
Is that a problem?
We're the ones living with my mom, you know. It's not fair for you to just swoop in and get all chummy with her. I didn't quite get what my husband was saying. What I mean is, I'm worried that Linda might end up inheriting more than us. What? Don't you get it? Linda is just trying to win my mom over. It makes her living here pointless. I don't understand what you're saying. I couldn't believe what my husband was saying. It turns out he was planning to inherit more from Susan by living with her. I was utterly disappointed in him. He never really cared for Susan from the start. Selfish, to say the least. Susan would be heartbroken to find out her son was thinking this way. Then, an unexpected event happened. I had to stay at my parents' house for some business the previous day. As I was about to head back, my husband suddenly called. What on earth is it for? I didn't really want to talk to him, but I picked up because the phone kept ringing. Hello? My mom collapsed and was taken to the hospital. What? I was genuinely shocked and immediately headed to the hospital. It was an extremely hot day, and it seemed that Susan had suffered from heat stroke while weeding the garden. A neighbor found her and called an ambulance. My husband couldn't come right away because of work and had asked me to go instead. How selfish and irresponsible of him. Anyone would drop everything to be there. When I got to the hospital, Susan was asleep in her bed. According to the doctor, she was in a critical condition. Shortly after I arrived, Linda also showed up.
Is it true that Mom collapsed?
Yes, she's in a very critical condition now. As I said that, Linda gave a creepy laugh and then stood in front of Susan saying,
With this, all of your inheritance will be mine.
What?
I'm glad this is happening sooner than I thought. Take your time in heaven.
Linda said this right in front of Susan, who was in critical condition.
Whoa, Linda, are you actually saying that? What's your deal? Are you eyeing the inheritance too?
No way. Why would I?
I don't know about that. Ever since I heard Robert moved back in with his parents, it made me wonder, are you guys after that spacious family house?
I told you, we're not.
Come on, just be real for once. There's no point being chummy with your mother-in-law when there's nothing in it for you.
Is she even human?
Well, just so you know, I'll be the one getting the inheritance, huh?
With that, Linda left the room laughing. As soon as she stepped out, Susan, who had been bedridden, sat up with a smile. I was so shocked. I thought my heart would stop. What, Susan? What's happening?
I knew she was after my money.
Susan, are you okay?
Yeah, It was just heat exhaustion.
But the doctor said it was critical.
I had them say that actually.
What?
I wanted to see if my children really cared for me or not. I had a hunch, but I wanted to be sure.
Susan?
So we have a lot to do, Karen. Can you help me?
Huh? Susan was discharged soon after and started making plans. Plans that could be called nothing short of retribution against Linda and my husband. 1 month later, Susan gathered everyone in the living room.
Thank you all for coming. Mom, what's this all about?
It must be important if you're calling us all here. Linda and my husband seemed a bit annoyed. Probably because Susan had been quickly discharged for mere heat exhaustion. Susan began discussing her plans for her estate.
After my recent incident, I did some thinking about inheritance.
As she said this, Linda and my husband perked up.
So who's getting what?
I assume this house will go to me, right? I was disgusted by their blatant greed. Susan ignored them and continued talking.
I've decided to sell the house.
What? Their faces froze. Whoa, what does that mean?
Why would you sell? If you're selling, just give it to us.
No way. We've lived in this house. It should go to me.
You two are always thinking of yourselves. Even when I collapse, or at any other time, all you ever thought about was how to get more from me. I know everything.
Both Linda and my husband went pale.
That's why I'm leaving you nothing.
What?
What? I'll sell the house and use that money and my pension to live in a nursing home. When I pass away, I'll donate everything I have. You can't be serious.
What a waste.
I've had enough of you all taking advantage of me. You think parents can just keep loving unconditionally while you use them? Forget about the inheritance and start thinking about fending for yourselves.
What the?
I was counting on that inheritance for my life plan.
Linda and my husband collapsed to their knees. But it's not just Susan who's done with them. Linda, I can't stand your selfishness anymore. I want a divorce.
Wait a minute. Why are you abandoning me too?
Do you think I want to spend my life with someone who's happy to hear Susan is critically ill? It's not good for a child's upbringing. I'll take custody. Let's handle the rest through lawyers.
What the?
Thomas decides to divorce Linda. Then, my husband oddly chimes in. Well, Thomas, do you think that's a bit harsh? She may be a hopeless case, but divorce is a bit much, don't you think? His tone carries a mocking undertone towards Linda. This man doesn't understand his own standing.
You think you're not getting a divorce?
What?
I can't continue this marriage with you.
Whoa, hold on. Karen, why are you saying that? I've been disillusioned by you throughout our marriage. This is the last straw. I'm definitely divorcing you. What? I grab my pre-packed bag, say goodbye only to Susan, and head back to my parents' home. Later, through a lawyer, I demand a divorce from my husband. Faced with a legal battle, he reluctantly agrees. It seems Linda and her husband ended up divorcing in a similar fashion. By the way, I still keep in touch with Susan. Amazingly, as a token of gratitude for my good relationship and housekeeping, Susan bought me an apartment to live in. Thanks to that, my life is quite comfortable. I've also managed to find a new job, so I'll be saving up more. Susan is in a high-end nursing home, living her best life and even making friends. When I visit her once in a while, she always happily talks about her daily life. Robert, however, rented an apartment alone, and his life is falling apart. His home is a mess. He's mentally unstable, and he's run through his savings recklessly counting on the inheritance. No woman would want to be with a man with such a history. Plus, he let himself go during his marriage and looks terrible now. For the world's sake, it's better if he stays single. As for Linda, she tried to live off various men and got caught by a marriage scammer, losing all her divorce settlement money. She messaged me for help, but when I ignored her, the messages stopped. I don't know what they're up to, but I doubt it's anything good. I'm forgetting about them, and I'll focus on enriching my life from now on.